All right, welcome back, J.L. Scott Fishing. Fishing for smallies in the fall. 31 degrees this morning as we enter November. 85% humidity, 2%, 2 miles an hour. So virtually no wind for the first time in a couple days on the upper Potomac. Been a crazy couple weeks for sure. We want to revisit the fall reposition that's already taken place now, right? You can go back. I'll put the link to the newsletter in the description. Big shout out to Hooked Fishing Gear. Use my code 20% off. Hooked Fishing Gear's got a 50% store-wide sale going on right now as we transition into the wintertime for performance gear. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of using my code as well for additional 20% off. And find some stuff in there. I'm sure that you want to have. Hey, start doing some Christmas shopping now. That's what I got to tell. That's what I got to say to people. Big shout out to all the anglers in the Smallie Chaser River Bassin series for the month of October. Crazy 12 citation smallmouth bass. That's in Virginia, Maryland. That's 20 inches or more. Absolutely phenomenal during this transition repositioning of the smallmouth bass. But I get a lot of questions about this time of year. And coincidentally, I literally just had a conversation with my editor about for my upcoming book on the Upper Potomac about the fall section in terms of behaviors and the fall influences on our river systems and how people can attack that period of the season. And a lot of people get intimidated by it for the most part because a lot of people don't fish really in the fall, unfortunately. At least where I am in the DMV, that's District, Maryland, and Virginia. You see a significant decline in fishing pressure, a significant decline of boats and kayaks. You have no tubers, none of that summer stuff is all gone. It's ended at Labor Day. You've got literally a massive drop off in the amount of people that are out on the water, which also influences your actual catch rates and ability to land really quality fish during this period because there is significantly less fishing pressure. If you go to the link in the description and subscribe to the free newsletter, you're going to be able to go back to in August when I posted the article on the fall transition, or what I like to call the reposition. Now, it's now November, so those fish have repositioned, okay, for the most part, about 80%. They've repositioned to where they're going to be now for the next month until winter, okay? And then in winter, they may realign again to find deeper water, okay, because they're still feeding up right now. So they're going to find deeper water and those pools for the winter time, okay? So what you're really looking for right now, which we've just experienced for the first time, again, it is now November, okay? And we're just this morning had our first major frost here in Maryland, okay? Closer to D.C. Obviously, somebody may have had more in the upper parts of Maryland and up north. But down here, this has been our first what I would consider major frost. What do I consider a major frost? I consider a major frost when your windows of your cars are all iced up and the frost stays on the ground, okay, on your grass until about 9:30 in the morning. And then by 9:30, it's gone, okay? Because the sun has come up and the thermals of the ground have melted that frost away, okay? The other ones could be dustings. We had one about 2 weeks ago. But we are now, like I said, in the 30s, below freezing, okay? For the first time now, okay, in the season. But we're going to jump back up to 60, 65, okay, in the next 5 to 7 days. Okay, so temperature change is a big thing. It's a big thing, okay, in terms of what happens to those smallies and how they're going to react, okay? So what they're experiencing right now in your river systems is really the first chill, okay? The temperatures have been dropping, sure, since August. Slowly but surely, every kind of 7 to 10 days, okay, as we get closer because of the change in the season and the daylight hours and the overnight, okay? Slowly but surely. But this is the first big chill, okay, where we drop 20 degrees consistently down and have frost on the ground. So that's going to impact their feeding behavior, okay? It's going to trigger, okay, a reaction. And you can find that in the newsletter. So we've got breakdown of fall behavior that we talked about was temperature change, okay, which we're now experiencing, feeding behavior, which has been going on, migration, which has happened already. And we know what migration is. It's the movement of our bass, okay, throughout the system, throughout the river system, okay? There's been a lot of studies done. There's been a lot of back and forth on how far smallies will move. Some have argued upwards of 10 to 12 miles. I think it's probably, could be, but I think for the most part, it's 6 to 8, unless you have some kind of obstruction, like a dam, okay, or that pins them in where they can't go any further, okay, and maybe they can't go lower. All right, so that as always influences exactly wherever you're fishing at, what your river system is, and then how much cover or structure that your system has, and then what we're talking about now is the weather patterns, okay. Cold fronts, heavy rains, wind and rain, all these things are going to impact your smallmouth, okay? And so a lot of people try to figure this kind of stuff out in a number of ways in terms of locating smallies in the fall, because the big ones come out to play. We proved that in the October monthly throughout the state. There's really only two things that you need to concern yourself with, okay, if you're really focusing for fall river smallies, okay? And the one is obvious, okay, because they're feeding up. It's forage. A lot of people miss that. A lot of people think that it's just current, okay? That, go to where the current is, okay? And that's part of it, but it's not all of it, okay? Because you can still catch smallmouth bass when there's no current. There's plenty of places that don't have that kind of current, okay? You've got two kind of camps that, if you've got man-made current, what I consider man-produced current, meaning they're going to open up the lock, okay? They're going to open up the dam, okay? And that is a man-made phenomenon that influences your smallmouth bass. Now, I don't have that issue on my river systems for the most part, okay? I have natural current flow. Well, what is the natural current flow right now that's going to influence my smallmouth bass or your smallmouth bass? What is that predicated upon? It's predicated upon the weather, okay? Not a man-made phenomenon, okay? So let's take a look at this just within our region, just, right now, okay? Where we're seeing temperatures in the 30s, and let's take a look at our current water depth, okay, of most of our river systems right now. And this is where you start, okay? You can go on NOAA, N-O-A-A, and punch in your river system to find out, where their hydrographs are and where you can see. So right now, the Potomac River at Point of Rocks is 1 foot of water. Edwards Ferry is 2.8 feet. Very low for Edwards Ferry. Monocacy, just over a foot. Little Falls, down near D.C., 2.5 feet. Millville, Shenandoah River, going into the upper Potomac, okay? Below the confluence, but flowing into the upper Potomac. 1.2 feet. The Maury River, 1.2 feet. James River, okay, in Richmond, okay, in city Richmond, 3.5 feet, okay? James River in Scottsville, 2.7 feet. So that's the low level we're talking about right now with the actual chill effect. So what do you think that's going to do to the water? Shallower water, cold, cold, cold. How's that going to affect your smallmouth bass? Is it going to affect your smallies at all? Okay? And how is it going to affect your smallies? Inevitably, again, like I said before, people conflate current as being the reason, you know, for what happens to the behavior of smallies. Go where the current is. Current breaks, current seams, right? It's really not current, okay? It's what the current produces, okay? Oxygen, all right? The two most important things in your river system that's going to sustain a smallmouth bass population over time consistently is oxygen and forage species. Okay? Why is that? Because you can't have one. One forage species doesn't matter if there's no oxygen. Because we're talking about smallmouth bass. We're not talking about greenfish. Okay? Largemouth is more of a sedentary kind of predator, right? Remember, smallies and us are the same. I qualify this as tracking, okay? Tracking and counter tracking. The same way you would as an apex predator, all right? Doesn't matter what you're tracking. If you're tracking a deer, you're tracking anything that you're tracking, okay? And if you apply those same principles of tracking, could be tracking an individual, okay, to your smallmouth and understanding, looking for the clues as you're tracking them, okay, you're going to be successful, all right? Now, how do you track smallmouth bass? By understanding the ecosystem and understanding where science and biology tell us they should be. Everything predominantly that we do in our lives as apex predators, okay, is voluntary. We've got involuntary muscles, okay? We are thinking beings. Almost everything we do is a voluntary action, okay? This is not the case with smallmouth bass. Everybody thinks, oh, bass have such small brains. Bass are stupid. Bass are stupid. It's not that they're stupid. They're not thinking beings, okay? They are environmentally conditioned beings, okay, as a species. They are apex predators as well, just like us, okay? But they are conditioned to their environment, all right? And their environment conditions an involuntary response in them. Bass don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I'm going to go to the drive-thru and I'm going to get me, some biscuits. They don't think that. The conditions predicate them to action. It's involuntary response. Why are smallies so aggressive? Do they think before they act? No, they don't. They respond to the conditions present in the river system. Okay? And oxygen, why are they relating to current seams and current breaks? It's where the most oxygen is. Why do they need to relate to that current seam and current break? Because they're exerting so much energy feeding, and unlike largemouth, so much energy staying in against the current, okay, in that current seam, current break, right? They're expending so much energy that they need more oxygen. They go where the oxygen is. Okay? And where it's the most prevalent, preferably clear water. Okay? Why? Clear water has better oxygen than stained water. Okay? Muddied up water. Okay? And so that's an important thing to understand is they need that oxygen because they're exerting so much energy. Think you on a treadmill. You come off that treadmill, okay? There's two things technically that it's going to happen. One, hands on the hips, you're going to bend over, you're going to start breathing, getting more air into your lungs, and you're going to go grab some water. Okay? Right? This is what happens to smallmouth, is they're constantly taking in oxygen because they're exerting so much energy in doing what they're doing. They're not a catfish. They're not laying on the bottom. They're not just sitting there waiting for something to come by. They're not. They're constantly moving, okay? And so a lot of people kind of just go current, current, current. You know, it's not current. I mean, current is a factor. It's oxygen. Where is the best oxygenated water is where you're going to find your smallies, and in relation to forage. Grass, for example. Okay? Grass is going to produce. Okay? Not only forage species, but if you've got nice, vibrant green grass, you got some photosynthesis happening. Okay? So you've got some stuff in the water there. Okay? That's going to influence that bite. All right? And so you want to understand those things and how that change, that slight change in oxygen levels, okay, is going to set the stage for you in terms of understanding where these bass are going to be positioning and repositioning. For me, what I've said in a couple of videos, and one thing I'll address here in terms of, you know, all of your weather patterns, temperatures, water temperatures, all this stuff. Cold fronts, warm fronts, stable weather, air temperature, cool water, warm temperatures, cooler temperatures, right? Optimal ranges for smallmouth and their temperature ratings, where there'd be feeding activity. All this stuff, they're conditioned to. So they know this morning, crap, our water temperature just dropped. It's 30 degrees outside. I'm in cold, cold, cold water. Okay? The season's going to change. Okay? They know that instinctively. They're not thinking that, because they are beings involuntary to their environment. They're not making conscious decisions. I'm going to go here because I know this or that. Okay? Right? They're driven and pulled to those areas based on the ecosystem, based on their biology, and based on all these factors in the water. Now, one of the simplest tactics that you can employ, and I see this a lot, and I see people making this mistake up here, and I always try to like have these conversations with people at the ramp sometimes, and you know, when people recognize me or ask me questions, is a lot of people will go out on the Maryland side in the morning, like right now, 9:20 in the morning. Okay, sun, you can see right now coming out my window, sun's coming up, sun's coming in. We're at 33 degrees. Okay, I've already been out to the Potomac today this morning. Okay, I've already checked the ramp out. Daughter dropped off at school today. I got another one that's out of school. It's on a senior skip day. Senior skip days, man. I just gotta laugh. When the school authorizes you, you get to stay home. I don't really think that's skipping school. I don't know. These kids do it different. That's all I can say. When we used to skip school, we skipped school. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody knew where you were. School was still open. Evidently, this senior skip day, none of the seniors are at school. So it's an authorized absence, I guess. But anyway, swing by the ramp, nobody there. Okay, pretty typical. It's November, nobody there. 30 degrees, nobody there. But if someone was to be launching like last week, they would launch out and they would immediately hit the bank on the Maryland side. Okay? And I see this over and over. And that's the number one mistake that people make here. Okay? And here's the reason for that. Okay? And I cover this in a section in the book. I've been fishing up here for a number of years, and I fished the same sections. And unlike a lot of people, you know, that run and gun, okay, I could do that too. But, you know, there's a couple guys, you know, in the kayak scene, like a Russ Snyder, for example, was a hammer. He basically just covers a lot of water, right? And that's one way to go. He's a hammer, no dispute. But what I found for me, for smallies, for me, just because I know I can go out 3-4 times a week, is I'll hit different sections and basically just work that section for 6 to 8 hours, right? So I can dial in that section and put how sections different. Bass were here on this day with these conditions, then they weren't here, you know? People always be like, say, oh, there were no bass there. Bass moved. Why did they move? Okay? They were pulled away from where they were the day before. And there are a number of factors for that. Okay? It's not that they just up and said, hey, let's get out of here. Let's go on vacation upriver 10 miles. Okay? They're pulled through the ecological factors. Maybe there's no forage, okay? Right? They decimated the crawl base. There's no, like right now, minnows, okay? Shiners, all that stuff. What's happening with your forage species that can't survive in cold water? Well, they're dying, okay? So their populations are dwindling and dwindling and dwindling the closer that we get to winter. So the fish have to move. It's not a conscious thing. It's an involuntary response to the conditions in the fishery. So I like to dial in and pick these areas apart so I have an understanding of what's going on in the river. I'm not just blowing all by. I'm not tournament fishing, so I can do that to gain a lot of knowledge about my river system and how the actual fish behave. And this mistake that anglers make is they come out maybe they come out of Pennyfield or they come out of Riley's, come out of Seneca Landing, and they immediately turn right and work the bank. They're working shallow water because, well, the fish are supposed to be feeding up. And I see this all the time, is they're not catching any fish. Why are they not catching any fish? Is it because they're not throwing the right bait? Is it because the conditions aren't right? Is it because the fish aren't there? 9 times out of 10, it's the fish aren't there. The fish aren't there because we are now in the fall. In the summer, everything's consistent, okay? Barring a weather event. Water temperatures pretty much stay consistent. Water levels, buying a hard water event, I think our levels this summer was consistent all summer. June, July, August. Basically the same depth, give or take 4 to 6 inches, okay? Unless you had unless you had some kind of rain event for a couple days. Very consistent, okay? You get into fall, now we got the chill, right? The first chill, major chill, okay? How are those bass going to react, okay? How did you react this morning when you woke up and it was 30 degrees outside? You grabbed insulated stuff. You put a sweatshirt on. Maybe you put on gloves. Maybe you had to go scrape ice off your windshield. Your behavior changed overnight. You instinctively knew that, boom, it's cold outside, okay? Instinctively knew as soon as you took 1 foot outside, I needed to do this. Bass, involuntary response, find warmer water, okay? That is their involuntary response. It just changed. Now, 2 or 3 weeks from now, could be completely different because they may have had that water temperature stay consistent for a while and they've acclimated to it. But this morning, if you're coming out on the Maryland side and you're hitting the Maryland bank, the fish aren't going to be there. Why are they not going to be there? They're going to be on the Virginia side, okay? Why are they going to be on the Virginia side, Jay? Because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So as the sun comes up over the tree line, it is throwing sunlight 30-degree angle down, 40-degree, 50-degree, 60-degree, 70-degree, all the way up. As the sun rises to noon, okay, it is throwing sunlight on 1.5 feet of water on the Virginia side. That water is going to move up in temperature just a bit, while the Maryland side is going to stay exactly the way it is right now when it's 31 degrees, 33 degrees outside. It's not getting any thermal. It's going to be cold. So what happens is your smallies do this rotation all day long. And when what I have found on the Upper Potomac is when there is no consistency, okay? When there's none at all, or it's absolutely consistent, smallies in the Upper Potomac default to the middle of the river. It's their safety net, okay? And so that's where you'll find them. But in the mornings, you're going to find them on the Virginia side because the water over there this time of year is going to be warmer. And then as the day shifts, okay, after 12 noon, they begin to rotate to the middle and then back up the Maryland bank at 2, 3, 4, 5 until you get into the evening. Because the sun then is on the Virginia side with sunlight coming down Middle River to the Maryland side, okay? So they instinctively, involuntary response to their conditions is to locate warmer water. Now, the contributing factor to locating warmer water is they're also going to locate forage. Because your forage species, unless they are a minnow that prefers colder water, okay, that is of that species subset, the forage is going to move away as well. Okay? The shock of cold water. All right? Until they get acclimated and adjusted. What happens to you when you get thrown in to, right, ice bath? Immediately, right? You're like, oh, right? Immediately, but then you get acclimated to it over time, right? And so that's what's happening to the smallies. Is that simple rotation, and I've documented this year after year after year for the book, okay, in the different sections of why people can't find fish. Where did the fish go? Again, water temperature, oxygen, forage, and your sun, okay? Plot chart that out, and you'll find your catch rates. No catch rates, middle of the morning. Worked my way over to the other side of the, one or two or three or four catches. Back down, I'm leaving. See, this is the number one thing I get all the time. By the way, Vigilante Coffee. Got my Maryland Terps playing this weekend against Penn State at home. It's going to be a good game. Not really expecting too much out of my Terps against Penn State, but I'll be freezing probably. We'll see what happens. But I get it. All the time, it's people, man, I was catching them, and then I got, like, this happens a lot. And we got them late afternoon. We got on a late afternoon bite. Because they were coming in. So they start on the Maryland side. They go off of Maryland dot, the canal, the towpath. They go out one of the locks, one of the ramps, whatever, and they go out and they hit the Maryland side, and they go all the way up, and maybe they go over. They fish the middle of the river. They go looking for fish. They can find any fish. Then it's like late 4 or 5, 6 o'clock, and they're coming back. Okay, so they got to come back to the Maryland side. And lo and behold, the fish are on the Maryland side in the late afternoon. And then they're like, man, we had to get off the water at 5:30. We got on them like the last hour. We don't know what happened. That's what happened. Is the fish are doing this. And it could be a mile, it could be a half a mile, could be a quarter mile, could be over a mile. Could be a 3 mile over the course of 2 days. And this is what's going to happen. All this stuff is influenced by forage and grass and oxygen. Okay? The grass is more prolific the grass is more prolific on the Virginia side of the Potomac, okay, of the upper Potomac. The rock and thermal is more prolific on the Maryland side, okay? There's more rock on the Maryland side. Why? Because they basically, over time and development and building out a towpath and all the things that man has done, right? They've disturbed a lot of earth on that Maryland side, and so there's a lot of rock and there's a lot of stuff on the Maryland side, okay? Virginia side, there's grass flats. There's grass all up in there. Penny Field to Old Dam 2, all up above Seneca Landing, all above, And so, you want to factor those things out. And this is the perfect time. Look at this stuff. 1 foot, 1.3, 2.6, 1.2, 1.2, 3.5, 2.7 feet. You should be, on a warmer day, obviously I know you don't want to go out when it's 33 degrees, I get that. But next week when it gets to be like 55 degrees, if these water levels are this low, get out on the water and scout out your grass. Okay, I say that to people and they're like, what you talking about, Jay? There ain't all that grass is dead. There ain't no bass there. You're right, there's not. Okay, the grass is dead, but the grass is there. Where do you think the grass is going to be in the spring? You think the grass is just going to up and move to some other location? No. It'll produce its seeds. It'll come back right in that spot. You just scoped it out, right? You just mapped it all out. Like, oh man, I found me some, deeper water, some grass, okay? So come back to it in the early spring. And what's going to happen? Is the fish are going to be there, okay? No one else is going to know the fish are going to be there. You know how I can tell you that? Is because right now it's 1.2 feet. And you're seeing all that brown grass and all that dead grass, right? Well, come March or April, it's going to be 3.5 feet. That grass is going to be underwater. And everybody else that's out there is going to be looking for grass. And you're going to know where the grass is. Okay? That's why you should fish in the fall. Okay? It sets your spring up. You find the deeper pools. I say this to people all the time with electronics. Is, hey man, technology is a wonderful thing. But if you are totally driven by technology, and I'm not talking about tournament fishing, because tournament fishing is a very window. 3-day event, 4-day event, daily event, whatever. Boom. It's a one-shot deal, right? I'm talking about you guys like me that are out fishing the same body of water all the time, consistently, okay? If you are relying only on electronics, what you find is when your batteries go dead, you've gone from an above average angler to a below average angler. Just like that. Because you're overly reliant on technology, side imaging. Okay? I don't need to do all that because I got a graph, I got side imaging. I hear that all the time at the ramp. That's great. Technology is phenomenal. But when you batteries go dead or something happens and you don't have that electronics, then you're going to prove your salt as a smallie chaser. Okay? Because you're going to have to read river systems, read current seams, read current breaks, read them. Like, not with electronics that are just sending a scope out. Oh, there's a whole bunch of fish over there. I'm just going to go over there. Okay? I mean, you're basically spotlighting deer. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. I totally get it. It's technology. Okay? But if you're a wade fisherman, this is why some of the best anglers I've ever met don't fish from a boat. Don't fish from a kayak. They're fly fishermen and they're wade fishermen because they have to read rivers, okay? They don't have electronics, okay? They have to understand and read everything. The sun, the water, the line, the tree line, the breaks, the seams, all these, the eddies, all these things. They have to read. And they're walking, or unlike you or I, they're walking a river. So what are they also finding as they walk? You check out plenty of my videos on the Upper Potomac on YouTube of me actually walking between the islands of the Upper Potomac, the shell beds. There's videos of where I 6 to 8 tires set down that were set there. There's a pattern set, okay? Because people set them there for a reason, okay? And you can find all that stuff, right? You find the ledges, you find the drop-offs, because you're walking in the river. Okay? You're not always seeing that stuff from a boat or from a kayak, right? The perspective is different. The physics is different. Your eye, as opposed to feeling it with your feet. I got a video of me walking along a ledge all the way across from the Maryland to the Virginia side. It's just a natural ledge, okay? And you can see a 4-foot drop off. You probably never would have found that. I never would have found that if I was in a kayak or a boat. First of all, I never would have taken a boat in that section. And I wouldn't have found it in the kayak because I wouldn't have taken it over there. But I walked it and then found a nice little pool where everything else was 1.8 feet. And this pool was 3.5. Sure enough, dropped a freaking Ned rig in there and bam, bam, bam. 4 casts in a row, 4 smallmouth. Okay? Because they're in that pool. And that's how you can learn these things by changing things. Don't be so myopic about electronics, okay? Electronics are a great tool, and they will catch you a ton of fish, okay? Put you on fish. But also take the time, turn your electronics off. Take the time to diagnose what you're seeing, okay? Because a lot of times, I kind of feel like sometimes co-anglers have that advantage as anglers sometimes when they're on their own, when they make that jump from being a co-angler to a boater. Because from the back of the boat, a lot of times they don't get to peek at the electronics. Okay, they're to the front. So they actually become a very different kind of anglers. And then when they are running their own boat in a lot of tournaments, a lot of those guys jump up really quick because they actually have electronics, but then they actually have that depth of knowledge of being able to read rivers. River fishing is not easy. River fishing for smallies is not easy. Okay, but you can make it easier understanding a lot of this stuff. In terms of reading rivers, understanding the sun, understanding it's about oxygen and forage. Remember, apex predators, they are conditioned to ambush everything. Okay? They exert a lot of energy to stay in that current to feed. Okay? So it's like this cycle. All right? And where are they going to go when they're done? What happens to you when you're done? When you have basically scourged everything, you're going to the couch, right? Boom. Where are they going to go after all day feeding frenzy? Okay? They're going to pull back out of that seam, out of that current flow in the summertime into some shady water, okay? It's still cleanish, and they're gonna go someplace where they feel safe, and they're gonna just kind of like relax, okay? Because they just basically fed up for hours, right? It's behavior, all right? And right now, this cold weather is going to have them moving to warm water where they can feed and get back, not exert. Remember, right now, they're about ready to flip the switch, okay, to where things start to slow down and they don't want to be exerting as much energy, okay? That's where you come into play by downsizing your baits. You've already gone from the top water September, October period. Now it's November, okay? You're going to enter in the water temperature. It's going to slow metabolism. It's going to slow some of the activity down. They're not going to want to chase as much. So you're going to want to slow your presentation down, okay? Size it down so it's an easy meal and slow your roll a little bit, okay? That's what you want to do. They're looking for easy meals to feed up on, all right? Because now they're triggered. And so it's an involuntary response to their conditioning. Water, cold, 33 degrees, okay? They know what's going on, right? Okay, they know without knowing, all right? Because they don't see things in terms of spring, summer, fall, and winter like us because they're not thinking beings, okay? They just are reactionary beings. So like, it's 33 degrees, I got to find me some naturally move and keep moving and keep moving. Why are they roaming? They're roaming for two purposes and two purposes only. One, to find forage, and two, to find oxygen to sustain their life. Okay? Smallies are not going to stay unless that's your system. But smallies are not going to stay in dirty, dirty, dirty water for that long before they instinctively move to find clearer water because the oxygen intake is better in clearer water. Okay? And so that's what they need. And they know, okay, just like us, we don't think about breathing, right? We don't think about breathing. It's involuntary. Okay? 90% of the actions, okay, of a smallmouth bass, I would say, is involuntary. It's all reactionary, conditioned to the environment. Okay? We like to overthink it. We like to say things that make us look smart. Okay? That make us sound smart, look smart. Okay? But at the end of the day, it's not all that. It's very simple. Okay? They need oxygen to survive, and they need food to survive. Okay? If you find either of those, you got a 50-50 chance of friggin' coming into some smallies. All right? I mean, that's just the reality of it is. And then you go through a whole bunch of small fish, and the whole thing is like the pods. And we could talk a little bit about, I'll do it in the book in terms of the different sections, in terms of some sections, your pods are 3 or 4 smallies together of like size. Okay? Other sections of the river, they're 6 to 8. Like right now, they're about 8, around 6 to 8, maybe 9 fish are together. Why are they coming together? Safety reasons, okay? It's an involuntary thing, all right? And they're moving together, working together, usually all of like size, okay? And that's another phenomenon that people debate, in terms of that. Or usually there's 3 or 4, 14-inch smallies and then maybe a 17, okay? Or, I always thought of the pods as like your class, right? You hang with your boys in your class that are your age, okay? Like, you know what I mean? It didn't much matter whether or not your buddy you grew up with was 6'4" and you were 5'8", or he was 280 and you were 130, okay? You grew up together, you're boys, right? You still hung together, right? I think fish are a lot like that too, with their class. They stay with their class. And, and some in the class are going to be bigger than others. And so you want to think about that. Like, but you're predominantly going to see these pods this time of year, middle river, that are working in 3s and 4s, 6 and 8s, depending on what you're getting into. This is why you very rarely just get into one smallmouth. If you get into one smallmouth, it's usually an outlier or a very small fish that's just, wandering around, curious, exploring. You usually get into 3 or 4, pretty quick succession. In the summer and that time of year. In the fall, it can be a lot 1 or 2s. It really all depends on whether or not they're feeding up or not. All right, but that's just a follow-up to what we're happening now that we're into November. We're in that second stage of the fall repositioning, okay? Heading into wintertime. We've had that transition, and now they're positioning, and now we've got this cold front moving in, dropping the water temperatures down, dropping everything down, and we'll see, we'll see what's going to happen here. We're expecting it. We're expecting to rise our temperatures up about another 10 or so degrees. Into the lower 50s, maybe 55, maybe we get to 58, which is a welcome change from 33, and we'll see what's going to happen. I expect to find them in the Middle River. All right, please like and subscribe to the channel. All right, Pook, I'm going to let you out, bud.